Welcome to the April meeting. My name is Kevin Siggers. I'm the president of the Wonky area Returners. Our first order of business this evening will be the financial report. George.
Okay, so we've had a number of expenses this last month. And so our treasurer, our bank account is down to $12,392.
Talking to the mic.
Recording.
Talking to the mic.
And $12,392.82.
There you go.
We have a bill of $370 that I just got today, so that'll be paid on next month. We have 118 members. I dropped 20 from last year because of non-payment of dues. So gotta pay your dues. I mean, it's only been out there for 6 months though.
Right.
We have some guests tonight and a new member. New member is Eric Swinford. Eric. And the guests are Sam Polito. Tom Rennells. Huh? Okay, lanyards. Lanyards is one other thing I want to talk about tonight. Lanyards are so that you can go up to somebody and say, you don't have to say what's your name every week or every month. But we've had a number of people who decide that they don't want to really return theirs. So, and they're not here tonight, of course. So please remember to return your lanyard at the end of the meeting tonight, so that's here for you for next month. One other thing on the sheets. If you don't know whether you paid your dues or not, this first column, if it's in green this year, it's in green, it says 2026, and that'll say that you're paid for this year. If it was in red, which you won't see anymore because I'm coming out with a whole new list, and the members who haven't paid are going to be removed from it. It'll be in red, but we're not going to worry about that. Next year will be a different color, so you can keep track real easily. The other thing is where you sign in for your initials, the date that you paid. I've been putting that in so that you know that you paid on a certain date. And the other thing that's in that little box, it says REG. If you don't have an REG in front of the date that's on here,
Trying to figure out if
it
there's a way
means
that I
you
could
have not
just see
filled
what I
out a
want to see.
registration form, and we don't
That
have
just
your
projects
contact information.
All right, the camera part.
And it's really important that we have your contact information so that we can get a hold of you, send you we can hook you up with the online videos and all the other stuff. And so if you haven't filled out an updated registration form, please do so. Please do so. It's our way to keep up with the members. Okay, that's all I'm asking. All right. Thanks.
Thanks, George. Now Dave is selling tickets for the wood raffle this evening in the back. So see Dave, we've got a pretty nice selection of wood in the raffle tonight. So take advantage of that. We will have show and tell right after the announcements. First announcement is just to say that we are accepting applications for the 2027 Wonky Area Woodturner Scholarship. So this is up to $900 scholarship to one of our members to attend a professional wood turning school. This last year's winner was Kris Kelliher. Kris is going to be our demonstrator tonight. So there are a couple of things. If you're interested in pursuing that scholarship, you need to have been a member of the club for 2 years. You have to agree to do a demo in the future, agree to be on the scholarship committee in the future, and you use the award within the year that you win it. So it's up to $900, goes for tuition, shop materials, fees, etc. So if you're interested, talk to someone on the board. We are going to, I think you have until September. Yeah, I think October, we'd like to choose the winner and then maybe announce it at the December meeting. So that's the scholarship. Youth Turning. So Daryl Coleman had started being our leader for that, but Daryl's going to have to step away due to some personal commitments. So if someone is willing to step up and be the leader for our Youth Turning project, talk to me or talk to someone on the board. We're looking for someone to take that over. Daryl's gotten started on it, started taking an inventory, starting to decide what we need to purchase and how we would structure those the Youth Turning workshops that we're looking to do. So let me know on that. On another note, Linda Thompson, John Thompson's widow, made another donation of wood this past month. George and I picked it up and it's on the shelves there and maybe some of it's on the raffle table this evening. Just a quick note, the AAW Symposium, June 4th to the 7th in Raleigh. If you're interested in the chapter discount, our code is MAWT 2026. And then also quickly, if you're interested in Turn on Chicago, that's July 30th to August 2nd. And you could go to their website to register, turnonchicago.com. Our next meeting next month will be extended show and tell. So that's an opportunity where you're not really so limited in time and the number of items that you can bring in. Here we ask you to just, at a maximum of 3 items and not to spend too much time on it because we typically have a demonstration schedule, the time for that. But next month, bring your show and tell items. You can go into more depth and detail. And it doesn't have to be a turning. I think it could be a tool or something that you made, some kind of a jig or something. So start thinking about that for next month. And the last thing, I need some feedback this month. We are planning for Matt Monaco to be here September 26th. So if you don't know who Matt Monaco is, he's a professional wood turner. He's taught at all the major woodworking schools in the country. He will be one of the featured demonstrators at the AAW Symposium this year. So Matt is going to be here on a Saturday, and our typical format is to do a demo. And we charge $40 for the demo, and that includes lunch and coffee and soda. And it's in place of our regularly scheduled September meeting. So that will be the 26th. And what we are looking to do is a topic Matt calls advanced bowl turning, fine design, form, and function. So Matt will be covering effective cutting, developing an eye for form, line, curve, how to sharpen, how to shape tools. So that's kind of what we have in mind for Saturday. So now we also do hands-on classes, typically on Sunday and Monday. So those are limited to at most 10 people, because we have 4 lathes here, and usually we can borrow 6 from Chris from Woodcraft upstairs. Gives us a maximum of 10. So it's limited to 10 people, and we need to start thinking about what the topics are going to be. I've sort of narrowed it down to 4, and I would like a show of hands after I go through the 4, I'll give you a minute to think about it, as to if you think you might sign up for a hands-on class, which topic would be of most interest to you. So they include turning wood pottery vessels. So Matt's idea there is to look at the classical pottery forms that have been done over the ages. So pottery, ceramic, classical forms, typically they're semi-enclosed forms. So it would be turning a wood pottery vessel. So that would be a hands-on class on either the Sunday or the Monday. Another option is foundations in wood turning. So this is focused on tool control, finesse, skill, confidence at the lathe, both side grain and end grain. The third option would be a fine detail platter. So not so much a bowl, but a platter, plate kind of a thing. Another option would be a fine OG vessel. So a vessel with an OG shape on the outside. You've got the bead and the cove coming together. And then he also could do the hands-on skew chisel class where you'll be learning, understanding, and mastering the skew. So I should say the Saturday demo includes lunch, $40. The classes, well, it has been $40. I should have said that up front. The board has not yet decided what we're going to charge for these events, but it would be somewhere in that area. We've charged $40 for the last probably 3, 4, 5 years. And for the classes, we've been charging $120 for the hands-on class. So that's limited to at most 10. I think last year we had 8 in each class. Typically, it goes probably 6 hours or so. And we have charged $120 for that in the past. I'm not exactly sure if we'll stay with that, or we might possibly, increase it something. We would let you know before you would sign up. But what I want tonight is just feedback on the topics. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 I'm going to mention. Turning a wood pottery vessel, foundations in wood turning, platters, a fine OG vessel, or a skew workshop. So how many people that would pay the 120? I got 130 stuck in my head, but one of those two who would pay that and come to the class, who would be interested in that turning a wood pottery vessel? Just put your hand up and keep it up. So I can count. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So foundations in wood turning. This is tool control, finesse, skill, confidence with the lathe, side grain, and end grain projects. How many people think they would sign up for that? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Fine detail platters. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Fine OG vessels. Okay. We got a lot of ties. I should have mentioned too that if we have more than 10 that want to sign up for one particular thing, we could run the same hands-on class 2 days in a row if it came to that. All right, skew chisel workshop. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we have some tough choices. I would say that turning the wood pottery vessel is a winner, and the other 4 are all pretty close. So, but this is very helpful. So let's do show and tell now. It would be orderly if whoever is at this side of the table, if we start here and then work our way
debark area. But basically, it was really a gorgeous piece of wood on the inside. And I just finished it with friction polish. Okay, so that did that. And this was the biggest challenge. You talk about segmented, I had the same problem. I don't have a table saw, but I have a chop saw, so all these pieces were cut, which took forever because you have to wait till the blade stops before you reach in and do. And I was having so many problems doing all that. Originally, I was gonna have this segmented 3 more pieces, so I ended up with loops, but I just gave up. Said enough. And then the top, because it wasn't totally going together correctly the way I wanted, I ended up putting a walnut piece between all the purple parts, so I could end up expanding a little bit. And I did end up with a few little nicks here and there, because boy, a sled and a table saw would make it go so much faster, but boy, is it a lot of work. So I don't know how many more I'll ever attempt. But it was a fun project and it turned out pretty well for what I wanted.
What kind of wood?
Basically the bottom piece that's oak, hickory, ash, Brazilian cherry, purple heart, and walnut. So a lot of variety.
Okay.
Nice.
There you go. Pottery bowls. This is a piece of basswood that I took and cut. Obviously it's hollowed out. Dyed with transient dye. Sanded to, I think, almost 3,000. So it turned out really well. It's got a nice coloration in it. It has a lot of illumination right here. So that was it.
So is that finished just from the Cranston, no coating over it?
There's a polyurethane on here, but it's this polyurethane wet sanded to 3,000. And this is at Washington Park Senior Center. I was over there for a demonstration for their wood shop over there. And they wanted me to turn blades, so I turned this base for them. Gave them a demonstration on that, and this is elm. So I'm told that it's worth a lot of money. Elm's hard to find lately. So, thank you.
So Detroit gave me this piece of cherry last month, and I brought it in to show it to you tonight, but now it's not here. Anyway, it was a challenge. It had some burl figure on the bottom of the blank. It was already cut into a disc. So I put the burl on the bottom. It had quite a number of cracks and splits that were up on this end of the blank. And I really thought about just turning them all away, but then I would not have had much left. And I also decided I wanted to keep the bark inclusion. Thought it was kind of cool. It's really thick, but that's because of all the cracks and splits in the bark inclusion. I thought if I went too much thinner, it would have been too fragile. So Ron will have to come out to my house if he wants to see it now.
The cherry segment that I did. And the finish on it, instead of using polyurethane or something, my wife liked it before I put any finish on. She said, can you keep it that color? Well, every time I would put finish on something, it always gets a little darker. So what I did was I used a stone sealer. We got a granite countertop, and I put a stone sealer on it, this impregnating sealer. It actually absorbed right into the wood. And I was able to sand it with a 600 grit paper, and it turned out pretty decent. So again, it's segmented and
Is your wife happy?
It's very.
Okay.
One piece that I can't give away.
Well, I'll do it for a minute. So, as I've mentioned 2 or 3 or 20 times, I love hiking. And, in the winter, the woods are pretty drab. And pretty much the only color you see are birches. So it's always really nice to come around the corner and there's a stand of white birches kind of glowing in the woods. And then you'll see these red kind of stalky plants everywhere, and that's red osier dogwood. So I just put them together. So this is a piece of birch that I had, and the red osier dogwood, and very punky. Birch starts to rot on the way down to the ground. That's you're gonna have to get to the ground to start rotting. But it's very rewarding because that means that it's almost always spalted like this, and so really pretty piece of wood. So, yeah, this is kind of my winter woods bowl. And this bowl, so every year I go to a conference and it's in a different city every year. And a few years ago, I started this tradition where I would make them a bowl. I'm friends with the organizers. And I would make them a bowl that was sort of themed around the city. And this year it's in Pittsburgh. So if you know anything about Pittsburgh, it's at the junction of 3 rivers. So it's known for the bridges. And there's 16 iconic bridges downtown. I was not about to carve 16 bridges into the rim of this bowl, but they break down into 8 different shapes. And so there's a representation of each shape around the rim of the bowl. And then the confluence of the 3 rivers in the middle, and then the gear to kind of signify Pittsburgh's manufacturing steel making history. So it's this year's Pittsburgh Bowl.
What's the
Blackwell.
black one?
My wife wants a little bowl. So I had a bunch of black walnut. This happens to be a maple, spalted maple. And put a little cover I got from Penn State on there so she can, put whatever she wants in there scent wise. Hopefully not while I'm around. And my sister had a lot of black walnut that they took down. So I just made a bunch of little bowls for trinkets and stuff. This is black walnut. It had kind of a neat texture to it. Kind of where a couple of branches came together. And I started experimenting a little bit more. I probably could have done this a little bit deeper, but it still has some of the bark on it. And then I did this one. This one started to crack on me a little bit, so I had to do a couple of changes in it. Again, just a nice little black walnut bowl. So not quite to the caliber of some of these over here, but I'm working on it.
This is a piece of the Bardenhagen wood, it's curly maple. I like making bottles and jars. This is hollow, it's hollowed from the bottom. So this was my second one that I hollowed from the bottom. It's kind of fun to think through that process and take a guess at what your final shape is going to be, because you're supporting it from this end. And so, you know, you're hollowing what you think final shape is going to be. This is my second piece. Making these plain brown and round pendants. And I've taken my little SCM engraver tool and done some etching of leaves and feathers on film. This is my third piece. So my neighbor cut down this not cottonwood tree. And a bunch of it disappeared and she had a sign in the road ditch, free wood. And I thought, well, I'll go down and I'll just throw that on my burning pile, because I'm sure not gonna chop it up and burn it in my fireplace. And I went and I rolled this under the forks of the tractor and I looked and I thought, you know, that wood might not be all that bad inside. So I sliced it up on the sawmill. This was actually like the main trunk where 4 or 5 branches came together. This was another, just one of the branches that branched off, and so those are from fairly different parts of the tree. And the wood speaks for itself. I turned these green and I kept the form simple, and it is what it is.
Cottonwood, right?
What did I say? Cotton? I said cotton.
Wow.
That's
Open workshop for this month is the last Saturday of the month, or it's the 4th Saturday. I'm not sure if that's the last Saturday or not. And then also, I've been invited to do a demonstration at the lacrosse club. So that's why we're doing it the 4th Saturday of the month, because I'll be up at Onalaska on the 3rd Saturday of the month, showing people how to make acorns.
So as everybody else has a hard time figuring out what to do for Valentine's Day, I came up with a great idea of doing a heart-shaped bowl. Never seen that before. Works really good with the Hershey Kisses and everything. Too bad I didn't get this done until after Valentine's Day. So this one is actually for next year. Black walnut, yeah. And then I saw a demonstration on the worldwide wood turners about doing a maple leaf out of maple. So it was interesting. Basically took a found an image of a maple leaf on the internet and printed it and sized it to the blank I had. Used a spray adhesive, put it on there, put it on the bandsaw, cut the whole thing. Did the back, turned around, cut it thin, and lots of sanding. I thought it turned out pretty cool. Yeah. I really liked the demonstration from Cindy Gosta last month. And one of the things I really liked about it was that she was able to salvage a good part of the inside of a bowl. I've never thought of that before. I mean, it seems so obvious in retrospect. So this is a piece of Japanese yew. I cut it down in the front of my house probably 30 years ago. And I've been working off it ever since, every now and then. So I thought this worked out okay. This was an abject failure. I cut it, and apparently what you have to do is cut it shallow rather than deep. So I had to use a different kind of wood for the lid. And it's what happens if you cut it deep? If you cut it deep, you just don't have enough wood in the lid to actually sit in the bowl. So, I mean, when you cut it shallow, you have to drop it down into the bowl further than you think it would ordinarily go. It's hard to explain that. But if you cut it too deep, there's just not enough wood left. So that's that. Oh.
I don't have any tops this month, no tops. But I bought some epoxy to make some tops, and one thing led to another. And my wife was looking online, and she saw a vase turned out of the colored pencils. You've probably seen them. And she says, "Oh, you need to make me a bird out of the colored pencil." So I was playing with the epoxy, and that's what this is. just dropped the wood piece in the mold, then the colored pencils. And then, of course, she was at Walmart, and she found the colored popsicle sticks. So did the same thing, and they did not stabilize the sticks. They worked out pretty well with the epoxy. Then I was on Keith Lechner's website, and he does a lot of epoxy wood combo turnings, and I had a piece of cherry that I have to stabilize, and that's what I bought the epoxy for, which I still haven't used it for that project. And I saw this pine cone vase that he was making, so I took his pattern and I made one of these. I did not stabilize the pine cones, so if you look close at this, there's a lot of pitting. And I learned a little bit on that. I'm working on a second one at home now with stabilized pine cones. And that seems to be working a lot better. But this is just has 2 coats of lacquer on it right now. It still needs to be sanded. I'll probably sand it down to, to 1500 or something. And I use lacquer because there's the wood and epoxy combo. I tried polishing it, and it dulls the pine cones, so I have to use a surface finish on it. So anyway, been playing with epoxy a little bit this winter with the wood.
Ray, you're doing a program for us later this year on Turning the Birds, right?
Birds, yes.
Yeah, so we'll see that sometime later this year. Here.
You see the birds, I think you.
Started turning wick stands for pro health for cancer ladies. So the ladies that are doing chemotherapy, my wife had cancer and she didn't wear a wig. She didn't want anything to do with it. That these look a little bit more like ladies. I was doing most of them just out of mushrooms. They look more like the mushrooms. But I thought I'd change a little bit. Most of them, they want about 14 to 16 inches high. And then in the bottom here, you put your earrings or whatever you have. But I hate water-based varnish. I tried some of this triple thick stuff. Well, it didn't look very good at all. It was kind of white. But if you use the oil base, it takes too long for the smell to go away. And the last thing you want is a lady to be sick when she's trying to just get through a month at a time. So that's about it. Other than if anybody wants to turn them for the hospitals, I'm doing Milwaukee, Waukesha, and McGuanago, which mostly operates out of Milwaukee. So I just thought it'd be a good way to return to the people that did so much for my wife. I actually got a Christmas card from one of the ladies thanking me. So that was more than enough thanks there. So it's a rewarding way to do something. So that's about it.
Too big to bring here. So this is why I started Journey, is I wanted a fancy 4-poster bed. So I finally got it done in February. Took some shots of it in my basement and finally moved up to my bedroom. And now I'm really happy to walk into my bedroom and see that and say, hey, I made that.
That's pretty good, yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a little bit of turning there, but the posts are there and everything else is just flat work, but
How many pieces were your posts?
2 pieces.
Okay,
The tops were all exactly the same. And probably have closer to one, but the tops were the same and the bottom were just different heights for the headboard.
Did you use a duplicator to do that?
Nope, just plywood template.
What's the wood?
And the best I could get. Pardon me?
What wood did you?
It's cherry, all black cherry.
with, just a custom mixed up transient dye. Water-based, semi-gloss polyurethane sprayed through, the cheap rock area field spray. That's my project for the month.
Is that it for show and tell? Okay, let's bring up Kris Kelliher, who is going to demonstrate offset mushrooms. We'll take a break somewhere around. Let's see, or between 7:30 and 7:45, we'll take a break.
So to start with, everybody.
I got an email
pick up
from
a
Jim
copy.
Andreessen. He says he can't get into them.
It's really meant to
tried
be
to,
like a guide for you guys, you can take notes on it, whatever you want to do. The real issue is when you're,
So I told him, try
sometimes when we
again.
do these
Should be able to
demonstrations,
get in.
as you're trying
Yeah,
to
but
do it
then
on
You
the
should have the,
fly, so to
I didn't
speak.
have the,
In some cases, it doesn't
Do you have
necessarily
a
come
list
across
of
real clear,
who's
so
on?
you're mumbling
Yeah,
into a
well, I have to bring
microphone,
it
you're
up-
trying
I
to
have to
get
bring
some
it up on
detail,
that.
you're just trying to get
oh,
some
I can't
physical
look at it just yet.
picture, some
Okay.
aspect of the training. So,
But
we're gonna just go through this, and I'm gonna
I mean,
explain
I
it
could try
first,
at the break.
and then
Okay.
we'll actually go through the
I can
demonstration.
assume to
after
try
I
again.
go through the
Try.
explanation. So when I do these, I kind of came across them by accident. I started turning with all carbide tools. I didn't do anything with traditional tools. I was scared shows. The first bowl or the first training that I had was with
That's just.
Rockaway. I did a bowl turn. That's what I turned my first bowl and I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. But that was all with carbide.
It was a Zoom.
So
Zoom.
then I bought a set of carbide tools and I started
It'll be a
messing around with
link.
carbide tools. And then you get
There's
going
the link.
on and it's like,
That's
this is
it.
kind of neat.
That's the
but it's
meeting.
not real challenging.
Yeah,
Then you try
that's what
something.
I was telling him.
You keep going, you know? So that's what I did. I ended up stealing firewood out of the firewood stack. And I started looking at things that I could do with
I
it.
mean, he wants to,
And
sure, just when you.
One of the things that I came up with, I started messing around with
It's on the right month.
these mushrooms. And like I said, we kind of came around by accident. I put them on there and boom, you know, something
He
go
says
off.
he got in. He
You'd
got
have
in
to-
like 2 minutes ago.
You'd have to go up and put your wife in. Okay. Hey, Chris? Yeah.
We gotta get on the microphone.
Yeah, because nobody on Zoom can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Anyways, so started messing around with these, and like I said, sometimes they come off the lathe, and then as you're going through and experimenting with different things, you kind of see what you can and can't do with them, right? But I also started to look at what woods kind of worked out kind of cool. You know, when one would work out, you would look at it. Now that's pretty neat. So then you start experimenting with other woods. So I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at the stuff that's up here, but literally every wood kind of has its own definition. So this is black walnut. This is beech. This is cherry. This is aspen. That's mulberry. And then this is butternut. And like, you know, they all have their own characteristics, no different than any other stuff that we're turning. We kind of look for stuff that has some cool character to it. I mean, it's not necessarily me and my talent of what's making that come about. It's actually what the wood does. And as you're going through it, you kind of decide what's going to happen.
Yes.
So I have a tendency of doing these mushrooms, at least myself. I look for stuff that has character to it. I'm assuming that's what all of us do. You look for stuff that has character, but you also look for stuff that stays together. Sometimes when I'm doing these things, you know, some of the stuff that looks really cool, I wish I would have brought one of the ones. This is actually a spalted aspen. So it's got a little bit of spalting that started in the thing. But I have some that are like spalted cherry or spalted apple. And the spalted stuff, obviously, as you're turning it, it has a tendency to get a little brittle. So when you start to make the refinements on these mushrooms as you're going through it, and again, we'll obviously go through the process tonight, but as you're going through it, if you try to get really narrow, spalting isn't real friendly to narrow, nor is it friendly to this heavy duty thing, you know. If you feel the end of that, if that is on the end of your, you know, your headstock is here, and you'll see that tonight. Your headstock is here. That piece is out there going womp, 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 womp. So as you turn that speed up, I had a third one of those. Anymore. The third one actually scared the daylights out of my.
The microphone, handheld, wireless. On the table,
No, I haven't.
right there.
Now can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
I'm trying to do is one.
I'm a sales guy. I'm used to talking all the time down. Usually people are hoping I shut up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when I'm doing this process, obviously you're looking for some type of character to it, right? And once you define that, whether it's a fruit woods have a tendency, for whatever reason, they keep the bark on a lot better than some of the other hardwoods do. I do some stuff with oak. Oak has a tendency, again, if it's a real thick piece of bark, a lot of that bark comes off. But I try to preserve as much bark as I can.
From the press.
Like,
Did I leave that
piece of
on?
mulberry.
I think so.
Yeah.
You can see the bark that
So like,
stays on.
the press songs are.
So that's what I'm looking for. I'm
Right.
looking for something with character, sometimes visual interest.
Yeah.
Like I said, sometimes it's swallowed, whatever. Same thing with color. In some cases, I'm turning them wet. Other cases, I'm turning them dry. Again, it really just depends on what I have as far as from availability and what's handy as far as the firewood stack. Like the wet stuff, when you do
I'm not sure if it's
when you turn these mushrooms wet,
off now.
in some cases, they actually crackle, and it actually gives them more
Here's
character
our low pass filter.
than
This
just
one
a
does.
simple, just a round shape or an offset or whatever the case is. So you're looking for all different reasons. You also, there are resources like this. Again, just all different, literally all different styles of mushrooms, mushroom heads, branches, whatever. So some of the other ones that I've experimented with, I will get it so that I'll take a mushroom like this, and now lately I've been taking my Dremel tool with a sanding piece on it, and I'll actually sand like waves or grooves or something like that. And again, it just gives an additional character. So when you're putting a display up, it's something else that gathers somebody's interest. And some of the guys were asking, do you sell any of this stuff? Believe it or not, I sell these. This last fall, I took them up to the Holy Hill Art Farm. I cooked 70 mushrooms up there. I came home with 4. And so Tony, a while back, he said that he literally paid for some of his lathes with mushrooms, one mushroom at a time. Well, these I charge
One guy.
anywhere between 10 and 15 bucks a piece. It doesn't take you long, and you're accumulating a couple $100, $1,000, whatever the case is, one mushroom at a time. And you'll see the process doesn't take a whole lot. And it's not like I don't have any great skills or anything. I'm a half-witted moron as far as from a turning standpoint compared to a lot of you guys with regards to technique. And I'm perfectly honest, I cheat. So I use both carbide tools and traditional tools to accomplish it. And when you're talking about, which you'll see when I do this process, and actually as we're going through it, I'll show you how this thing comes about, but it's not even necessarily that you're turning between centers or you're doing some type of an offset center. It's in the chuck. I'm physically taking that kind of that we create and I'm moving it. I'm just physically moving it, and then this thing flops. So the biggest thing is that visually and mentally getting past the fact that this thing could fly off at any minute. And once you get past that, it's pretty pleasurable. But the key is, again, when you're first starting out, especially when you haven't developed the technique yet, you can see some of these stems are a little bit fatter than other ones. There's some where I try to go a little bit thinner. And again, it's all on experimentation, what you can do with the tool. But it's cool. It's cool to experiment with it. Pretty cool. Worst case scenario, it's decorative firewood. Which I do find. But anyway, so that's literally how you start the process. You know, what visually looks good, what do you physically want to do? So now you have, now you've got your piece of wood, right? So mark your centers, however you decide to do your centers. Whether it's one of these little templates, you a couple of different center locations, right? Get your centers identified, pop it in between centers. Approach the lathe. Obviously, the first cut. So when I do this, the first cut that I make is with the square, the carbide square tool. So again, people who have better skills than I do, maybe you do this with the skew, maybe you do this with a spindle gouge or something else. I cheat. I'll be perfectly honest. So we're gonna make a tenon. We're gonna make a tenon on the tailstock end of this. And the tailstock, I mean, when we're creating this tenon, a couple of things. We want to make sure that we've got two things. One is you've got enough tenon so that when we go later on to bite into the chuck, it's got enough meat so that when you're doing this offset, when you mount it, two threads on the opposite side. So if this, the bottom side, which is in essence to the back wall, and it's hard there, the other opposite, no less than two threads. I'll emphasize that, no less than two threads. It does not stay on with less than two threads. Guilty. We've done it many times. Anyway, so the first thing we're going to do is create a tenon that's got a big enough bite. Second cut we're going to do, again, I'm cheating. And again, you may do this with a skew, you may do it with a detailed spindle gouge or something along those lines. But we're going to create some grooves. So tenon, now I have to have a back wall. I call it a back wall, but someplace that I can reference when I go to put it into my chuck later on. I can push that whole piece up against that chuck, and it's got someplace to sit against. Okay, so that's what this tool is going to do. I'm going to create this groove about 1/8 of an inch between that tenon and where I foresee the bottom of that mushroom. The other groove I'm going to make is I'm going to look at where do I want the bottom of the button. Okay, so this, I got like a branch or some type of a imperfection that's here. Excuse me. This is going to be about roughly where I'm going to end up putting the bottom of that button. So now I've got this void here, right? That in essence is the stem that we're going to be working with. So I'll go from that, and then I'll do the roughing gouge, and I'll just remove a bunch of this material, not all of it, not all the way down to the finished dimension, but a good portion of this, probably half of this material is going to go away. I'm also going to start to do material removal from the top half. I'm going to pull some of this material off of here to start to get, again, where I can shape the top of the button. Okay, so material's gone from here. Then I'll go into, I'll take the 1/2 inch full gouge, and now I start to create more a definition on the top of the button. So if I wanted it to be round, if I want it round, if I want it hollowed out, if I want a dimple on the top, I'm going to start to create that on this upper part. Don't finish the top. This is being driven here. If you finish the top and you go too close here, you lose the drive until you're ready to. Okay. We will eventually remove this material, but not yet. Right now, it's just going to be, we're going to pull this out so that you've got this button shape, and you'll see that when I do this later. So I'll do that, create the top. Now I know what the top of the button is going to look like. Now I can say, okay, where do I want my stem? How thick do I want my stem to come out of the bottom of that button? And can I concave, can I carve out any of that material up underneath that, like this, underneath. So can I start to pull some of that material out of that? And can I create this first part of the stem? So that's what I'll do. Again, staying with the 1/2 inch full gouge. Top, now that I know what the top is, I start to round up the bottom stuff. I get that first part of the stem. And then I go into taper. To figure out my sections. So in essence, this is how it's currently in the chuck, right? This is the headstock being driven. I've created the top of the mushroom, right? Created the top of the button. Started to take out some of the bottom material underneath the button, so it started to have some realistic look to it. And then I've created this initial part of the stem, right? So now I continue that quest, and then I go down and I do my taper. So this is going to be the midsection. This is what I call the lower section, and then this is what I call the base. So, and I do this because when you put this back into the chuck and you do eventually when we do the offset, when this thing is into the chuck and it's kittywampus, I have to have material. If I only had material this thick, if I didn't taper it, and this is from experience, I've tried to do this. It's just the same dimension. And this part gets too thin. When you go to do the taper, or when you go to do the offset, you pull out too much material that this gets really weak. And by the time you get down here, again, if it's this size, by the time you do your second offset to try to create that, you have too little material to keep this thing together. Physically, it doesn't hold together. And then this is part of the base. And one of the things that I also have learned over the course of time is I've done these. I've added this little indentation down at the bottom. So this is an offset. This is an offset. This is actually, once I get it all back in the chuck straight, I create this void here. And then I round out the shoulder and I make this final dimension as far as when I go to cut that off. So on the paperwork that I've given you, I kind of broke it down into stages. So this would be the result of stage one. So when I do my demo, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do stage one, and then it comes off the lathe. So I'll just send this around because you can kind of see what I was talking about. And this also defines what I was talking about as far as the material, keeping that so I've got some type of a solid back wall when I put it into the chuck. So you go from that to stage two. Stage two just means that we're going to start to do the offset. So now I put a chuck on here, right? And I put this in to the chuck offset. So it's solid down here, 2 threads up here. No less than 2 threads. Did I say that? No less than 2 threads on the opposite side. Because 1 thread is not enough. Anyway, so now you get it into the chuck. You got 2 threads here, and now this thing is funky. It's wobble. Oh, actually, before I move on to that, I normally, or when I first started doing this, I did not sand this, and I did not sand this, and I did not sand the stem ahead of time. So before I move to the offsets, I will sand these to whatever I want to sand them down to. I personally go from 60 to 320, and it's 60, 120, 150, 220, 320. That's what I do. So I'll do that. I'll finish those surfaces before I move on to the offset. Once this is done, sanded, where I'm satisfied with it, then I go to the offset. So now you've got this part, and you've got this funky wobble, right? And once you've got that funky wobble, a good way to physically keep track of what you're doing with that, I use a black contrast piece that I put below it. So now, as that's spinning, this picture, this spinning, and now you can look through it. So as you're now, just keep in mind, this is just taper. So this goes stem, taper, bigger taper, a little bit bigger taper towards the bottom. So as this is spinning, you can look through it. It's going to be vibrating, right? Because this is offset. It's not going to run on a good circuit. So you'll see this little vibration. You'll see this vibration of this dimension through here. And you kind of got to look through it. So again, then I go back with a 1/2-inch bowl gouge. And what I do is I go a little bit from here, a little bit from here, a little bit from here, a little bit from here. I go back and forth until I get this curvature, until I get that curvature in there. And once I get that, then I can actually take it more of a swoop through there to actually clean that up. Okay? Do everybody understand that? So. From this side, this side, this side, whatever. And once I'm satisfied, right? The idea is dimensionally speaking. So here's my rough thickness of my stem. If you want it to look realistic, you want to kind of keep similar shape, right? Similar dimension. So once you get that, stop. Don't go further. Doesn't work out well. So again, I've experimented. Oh, I want it to be longer. I want whatever. Don't do it, especially when you're first practicing. I mean, if you actually want to try to do this, it's fun to do. They're a fun shape to create, but don't go too far. So stop. Now, once you have that shape done, now you want to do the exact opposite. So if this is kittywampus like this in a chuck, we're going to go kittywampus like this in a chuck. Did I say no less than 2 threads on the opposite side? So again, offset. Now you do it again. You got your black contrast. Obviously, you shake this off, make sure all your chips are out of the way. So now you can put this contrast below it. You're looking through it, right? Again, we're going to do that same process. Here, here. Back and forth until you have that rough shape. Then kind of, if you can, smooth it out. Again, once you get, yes.
How fast are you turning?
About 12 to 1300 RPMs.
Even when you're
Yes.
wobbling
Yep.
around there, right?
Yep. But obviously the key is sharp tools. Yeah. If your tools are sharp, it's really not that scary. When you're experimenting and you don't know what speed to put them at, that's scary. And like I said, when I first started doing these, I actually did them with a round carbide tool. So it was more scraping. It wasn't actually even cutting. So that was really scary because those, sometimes your carbide stuff, if it's not quite sharp enough, it'll chip. You get a bunch of chunks out of it instead of actually a nice smooth line. And again, I'll show you how I remedy the chunks as well. Anyway, so now this is stage 2. This is the end of stage 2, according to the paperwork that I gave you. I'll pass this one around too, so you can see what the differences are between 1 and 2. So now you're to the stage where you've got both offsets are done. In essence, your difficult part of that turning is done. As of the end of stage 2. Stage 3, you actually chuck it back into the chuck, solid back wall, and now it's flat, and now it's just spinning, right? Yes, you're going to see this wound. You're going to see this offset spinning across this. But now it's flat. It's running true. The head spins true. Again, you'll see that as when I do the demonstration later. But now we create this third little void down below, and it just adds a nice little piece of realism for the mushroom. Some of my earlier versions, these are all like this one. This one doesn't have much of a third little divot, and it doesn't have the same look as like this one. It just adds another dimension of realism as far as I'm concerned. I like them better. It seems like the people who have bought them are like, yes.
Do you sand your offsets while they're offset, or do you?
No, I'll show it. We'll talk about that. So now you've got this third little divot. So stage 3 in the paperwork that you've got. Stage 3 is we create this third little void, right? And then I get this out. I get the Dremel out because you can see with stage 2, there's a bunch of you'll see where there's gouges and chips and other stuff. It doesn't have a real refined look to it. Some of the sharp edges, some of that stuff. So I'll take this. I'll take the Dremel tool and I'll go in there and I'll just brush those off. Sand them, grind them down, whatever you want to call it, to finish them off a little bit. And once that's done, and I know I have a pretty good piece, and I know, okay, now I'm ready to part it off or whatever. I'll get my parting tool and I'll say, okay, this is about where I want the end of my mushroom to be. I'll go in there and I'll just define that edge. And then I go back after it with sandpaper. And then from where I ended with the stem previously, then I sand those pieces. The one thing also that I have gotten into the habit of, when I do the sanding, it's not just a case of spinning it and sanding it. It's also, so I'll go through the grits. So 60, 80, whatever it is. I'll sand them while it's spinning, about 580 RPM. It's roughly what I sand it. And a lot of times what you'll notice is that you'll see the sanding marks, you'll see the cuts from the sandpaper. So then I'll just take that same sandpaper and I'll go vertically on those pieces. So I just eliminate the imperfections. I eliminate it. So again, what I'm trying to do is make it look as realistic as possible. So I just take that same grit, whatever I'm on, and I sand that and I straighten those out. So this would be at the end of stage 3, and you can feel, it's smooth, top is smooth, the underside is smooth, base is pretty much ready to go. And then once you're ready to part it off, then you can part it off. So. And then you finish it with whatever you want to finish it. In my case, a good portion of these have all been nothing more than linseed oil or walnut oil. But
Start to finish roughly what kind of time frame you're looking at.
which you'll see, it's like 20-25 minutes.
For all 4 stages?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a cool little process, but that's not what you're gonna do. If you start out doing these, don't be surprised, it'll probably take you an hour for your first go around when you're doing it. But I like it. I like the fact that I can go and I can grab some piece of crap wood, right? And within the hour, I have something that's decorative that people like. It's come along nice.
Do you leave sometimes the base down here as part of the?
Never. They're at least in my case, I cut them all off. Right, and that's the other thing. So once you're done, once you get it so that in essence you're finished, you can test it for standability, right? Every one of these will stand on its own. The only reason that they're in the display, this was a cool way for me to display them. The first time I took these out and I put them for sale, everybody wanted to pick them up. Everyone wants to see it. Oh, what is that? They pick them up and then they put them back and the dominoes go down. So you spend half your time picking up and resetting up all your crap up on your display instead of just being able to let somebody buy it. So this allows that person, they can pick them up and shove them in there. See, even like this.
What's in the bottom of the
This is just colored sand. Yeah, colored sand, and then this is just moss that you can buy at any of the craft shops or whatever. It just gives it a nice way to put the display up. Now I saw another cool thing. They didn't have mushrooms in their display, but some guy took a log and he hollowed out part of the log and he had a couple of legs, perpendicular legs underneath it, and they had hollowed out that log. That would be another way you could fill that with sand, and again that would look like a log. Especially from a ways away, you would look at a log and you would have sand or whatever. But it's kind of a cool way to display it. But if somebody's looking to draw somebody's attention into your booth, let's just say that you're selling your bowls, right? Or you're selling vases or something. But you're selling them for $60, $80, $100, whatever it is. Not saying that you need something to draw people in, but this is a pretty simple way to draw them in, draw the attention in, and to have them spend some of their good money and give it to you. So, anyways, so I don't know if we want to take a break before I actually do the demonstration. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Let's take 7:40.
Just
7